After introducing the HomePod in 2018, Apple is back 5 years later with the second generation. And in this video, we're going to check it out and see if it was worth that 5-year wait and see if it's really that much better than the original. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the unboxing. And you can see here, I do have the original HomePod box still, and you can see quite a difference in the appearance here. So we do have midnight and white for the HomePod 2, whereas we had white and space gray for the original HomePod. Now, the original HomePod was also $349 when it first got introduced, and the HomePod 2 is $299, so slightly cheaper. However, the HomePod 2 did get reduced down to $299 after a little while. But anyways, taking a look at the box here, you can see we do have quite a few differences. So you can see on the side also, we have HomePod instead of just the Apple logo. And the box itself was just bigger back in 2018 when it first got introduced. You can see it's taller and it's wider than the second generation HomePod. And of course, the second generation does also have these peel tabs, which make it much easier to open, whereas before we had plastic there, we kind of had to pull the top off. Now, something else I found interesting on the back of the box is that we have a 2022 date right there. Just like the MacBooks, it appears that the HomePod was also originally set to be released in 2022. All right, so let's pull off these peel tabs here and let's go ahead and check out the new midnight color for the HomePod. And you can see the difference here inside of the box as well. So the original HomePod had just a sphere, whereas the HomePod 2 has kind of looks like kind of a shock absorbing type of, setup here with cardboard around. So pretty interesting to see the differences there 5 years apart. And also the part where the HomePod sits is a little bit different as well. So you can see how it was back then versus now. And here's what the pamphlet looked like in the original HomePod. And we did get one solo Apple sticker, as you can see right there, along with circular little instruction guides and getting started guides. Let's see what we get in the second generation HomePod. And you can see here we have our cable. So first off, we do have a removable cable now, whereas before on the original, it was not technically removable. You could remove it if you pulled hard enough, but now we have a detachable cable. And then also inside, you can see that the pamphlet is also a good bit different than the original. And I don't believe that we get Apple stickers with this one, do we? Okay, maybe, nope, we don't. No Apple stickers with the HomePod 2. And you can see that we do not have the circular design for the pamphlets. Man, I wish you guys could smell through the camera because this HomePod smells amazing. This is like a better smell than the new Macs. All right, and here is the HomePod. I can tell right away that it is darker than the original, but before we take a look at the colors side by side, I do want to go ahead and peel these off. Super satisfying. Let's go ahead and take the bottom one off as well. Just as satisfying. So here is the original HomePod next to the new HomePod, and you can see that slightly darker shade of black. And again, it's midnight versus space gray. So we did expect a change, and you can see that's what the difference looks like. Now up top, you can see we have a difference here as well. So first off, the plus and minus buttons are always showing, whereas before on the original HomePod, you had to tap on the little display up top to see the plus and minus for the volume controls. You can also see a little difference in the display up top. So on the second generation HomePod, you can see a little bit of a lip right there, whereas on the original HomePod, we didn't have any lip at all. It's kind of just a flat lay right there. And if we flip these over to the bottom, you can see a difference here as well. So you can see a different little boot here at the bottom. So before it kind of indented, now it's just a flat surface here. This boot is just kind of a flat surface with no indentation. So, the original HomePods did have an issue with leaving little rings behind on tables. So I will be interested to see if the HomePod 2, if, this new design can kind of mitigate that issue. Now, I am also noticing a difference in the mesh. So the actual mesh design is also slightly different on the new HomePod. So it appears to be like a closer weave. I'm not sure. And it feels a little bit different as well. It feels more hard than it does like soft. I don't know how to describe it, but it just seems like the mesh is maybe more durable this time around than the original HomePod, which would make sense, especially if we have that temperature and humidity sensor built in. Oh, and another small detail, you can see that the power cable actually goes in on the opposite side now. So it goes in on this side now versus on this side before. Now, I was able to tell a difference in the weight when I picked these up side by side. I can tell that the new HomePod is a little bit lighter than the original HomePod. So the new HomePod weighs 5.16 pounds, whereas the original weighs 5.5 pounds. So you can tell a difference. I don't think it's going to be major. If you don't have them side by side, you probably won't tell a difference, but they are heavier, significantly heavier than like the HomePod Mini, for example. Now, as far as the height goes, you can also see that the new HomePod is slightly shorter, just ever so slightly shorter than the original at 6.6 inches. Now I'm gonna go ahead and plug this guy in. So let's see if it's reversible. No, it is not. You do have to plug it in a specific way. And there is what the little boot up signal looks like. And you can see my original HomePod is definitely slower. It does take a little bit longer to boot up than the new HomePod 2 as expected. Now, as far as the internals go, we do have the S7 chip for computational audio. We have the U1 chip for ultra wideband features like Handoff. And now we have support for spatial audio with Dolby Atmos. So that's going to be a big deal. We did not have spatial audio with Dolby Atmos on the original. So that's going to be a big difference right off the bat. Without even listening to these, I could tell it's going to be a big difference in overall sound quality. Now, also, we do have Thread and Matter support on the HomePod 2 as well. And something else that's brand new in the HomePod 2 is a system sensor. So this is going to be for advanced computational audio, and this is going to allow the HomePod to use feedback from the sensor to run complex tuning models in real time to preserve dynamic range and maximize the acoustics. Now, also inside of the HomePod 2, we have 5 tweeters compared to 7 tweeters in the original HomePod. We also have a 4-inch high excursion woofer, which is going to be great for bass. And then we also have 4 microphones, whereas we had 6 in the original HomePod. So 2 less microphones and 2 less tweeters than the original. However, thanks to the redesigned internals, the system sensor, and the S7 chip, Apple is claiming that this new HomePod will have better audio quality than the original. So here is what the setup looks like for the new HomePod. You can see all you have to do is bring your phone close and be on the same Wi-Fi network, and you will see this setup section right here, and it says center the HomePod in the frame. So we're just going to put that, and I guess I picked it up right away. Yeah, my camera was facing right down on it, so we set it up, and now we are going to pick a room. So obviously pick the room that you're going to have this in. Me personally, this is probably going to be in my entertainment room, so we're going to select that and tap on continue. And now is where you're going to set up use Apple TV speaker if you plan on using your HomePod with your Apple TV. But me, for right now, I'm going to do not now, although I will do that in the future. And then automatic updates. If you want to have automatic software updates, you can go ahead and turn that on. I would highly recommend doing that. And there we go. The HomePod is ready. You do also get a nice little chime from the HomePod itself as well. So we're going to tap on done, and now we are good to go. We can always go up here in our control center and see our HomePod on our network right here. So you can see entertainment room. It's not playing, but if you press play, it will start playing some music. All right, so now let's go ahead and open up the white HomePod. So here's what the white HomePod looks like, and you can see compared to my HomePod Mini, it is the same, it appears. However, you can see that the white HomePod Mini does get quite dirty, so it might be, a little bit yellow, and it might get some stuff on it if you do have a white HomePod. So just be aware of that. But overall, the color looks the exact same. Now, one thing you will need to do pretty much right away after unboxing these HomePods is go into the home application, go to home settings, and then go down to software updates. And you want to make sure to check for a software update because you will have one. So these things, again, were originally meant to be released last year. So we are going to have, an older software version on these HomePods out of the box. So we do need to go ahead and update to 16.3 or whatever it is at the time that you're watching this. And by the way, as I was moving these around, I could already tell that the new HomePod is much easier to move, whereas the first one was very hard to move. You basically could not move it side to side. You'd have to pick it up and move it, whereas the second generation can kind of just slide a little bit, which is nice. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so unfortunately, I think my original HomePod is dead. So it looks like a failed logic board according to everything I read online. So we're not going to be able to test anymore with the original HomePod because it is completely dead. Although I tried to reset it several times and it's just a brick now. Thankfully, the new product here is the HomePod 2 though, and we're probably not going to have that issue on the second generation HomePod. So we heard a little bit of audio, but I am going to play just a little bit more audio for you guys. And then I do want to play a podcast as well to see how it sounds with kind of spoken word content. That sounded terrific. Now let's go over to a podcast.
When psychologist Robert Cialdini was in college, a magazine salesman knocked on his dorm room door. He was selling subscriptions to Sports Illustrated magazine. Bob was going to say no, but then the salesman said,
"It's the most popular subscription here in your dorm, and the experts rate it as the #1.
So that sounds great. I was actually expecting a lot more bass because I know like on the HomePod minis, for example, it's not great with spoken word content. I kind of hear a lot of bass more than I do treble. So it was very well, evened out here on the highs, the mids, and the lows. And then finally, we're going to play this little cinematic trailer with no copyright music and video. So that sounded awesome. That made me want to go watch the movie right away. And that was just one HomePod. I can imagine what 2 of these sound like. Let's find out.
Derek. Are you awake? It's your turn.
It's me.
Jimmy!
Hey Liz, I'm just playing some air piano. How you doing?
That sounded excellent, and that wasn't even a scene with a lot of action going on or anything crazy. So to sound that good with both the background music and the vocals of the actors talking, it sounded great. Now, it's hard to say compared to the original HomePod, but I can tell you right now that the spoken word, content, the spoken word sound just sounds so much clearer. It seems like the treble is better, which I did not expect. Now, the bass, I do also think is better. Really just everything all around. The sound sounds better in general to me than the original HomePod, over the original HomePod, pretty much in every facet. It's not a huge difference. It's not a massive difference, but you could tell the clarity and just everything sounds a little bit more full, a little bit better. Now, I do also want to mention that the HomePod 2 has auto bass correction. So we do have a lot of bass on these, but it does have auto correction. So if it senses a wall, like on each side of the HomePod, it'll know to limit the bass so it won't be overbearing and shaking, your whole living room. And speaking of rooms, it also has room sensing. So it automatically understands its location in a room by using the microphones to listen for sound reflections and tunes the sound accordingly. So it's going to tune that sound based on its surroundings. And then of course we do have the temperature sensor built in as well. So if you go into the home application up top, you can see the temperature and the humidity based on your HomePod. So your HomePod has that built-in sensor up top. Just make sure you are updated to 16.3, otherwise that will not show up. Also, the handoff feature seems to work from further away, which is kind of a downside to me. You don't have to be right over top of the HomePod anymore. I could be like right here and it would hand off to the HomePod. So you might see that as a positive or a negative. I honestly don't like that, so I tend to turn this off. If you go into settings, general, and then down to AirPlay and handoff, you might want to turn off handoff and transfer to HomePod if that does get annoying to you like it does to me. Now, I am also going to be setting these up to use with my Apple TV to hopefully replace my sound bar, and I will talk about my experience with that in my full review and also in my comparison to the HomePod minis, so stay tuned for that video. So there you have it. That is the HomePod 2nd generation. My overall first impressions are great. Again, I will be doing a full comparison to the HomePod minis soon, and also I will probably do a more in-depth review later on down the road. But if you guys enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future HomePod videos. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.